welcome to the rabbit hole that is reality. We aim to engage, to inform and to inspire, with social commentary and topical talk of the week's goings on that really should have us asking questions. rabbitholethatisreality.co.uk is the place where you can go to listen, to watch and to download every episode that's been produced so far. You can also listen live to the premiere broadcast every Sunday at 8 PM on the UK Collapse Radio Network at ukcollapseradio.com. So please check out the official website, join me on Twitter and like the page on Facebook. So big thank you for taking the time out to join us here tonight as we air, whenever and wherever it is that you're choosing to listen to this on the World Wide Web today. So let's find out what we've got coming up in today's show. Well, actually it's my birthday this week. As it's going to air on Sunday, technically my birthday was yesterday, on Saturday 22nd of March. So I've had like a week and a half off work. So what have I done? Have I procrastinated at home? Yeah, a little bit. Have I played a few games? Yeah, a little bit. Did I go somewhere? Yeah. Did I do anything? Hell yes. So quite a few things that I've been involved with this week. I've done some video projects. I've got a festival coming up I've been helping to organise. I'm now, well, I went to Z-Day. Went to Zeitgeist Day down in London. Z-Day, Z-Day. How do you think it should be said? Z-Day, we're English, of course. I did a conference for work. Yes, while I was on holiday, I was forced to attend a conference for work. How annoying is that? But I did actually get some stuff out of it. In fact, my workplace gave me Sam Walton's book about how to become successful, called Made in America. Well, I'm going to read it through and see if there's actually anything I can gain out of it. Apparently everyone who's read it says it's probably one of the best books written on the art of selling and being successful ever. And you can't deny how a successful Walmart actually is, so perhaps there is actually something to it. We're also, of course, in a new time slot now. We're now at 8 PM on a Sunday, which is really good, in fact, because what was happening before, I was going to work 7 AM on Thursday, I was working until 7 PM on a Thursday, did a 12-hour shift, and then literally having to, bolt it all the way home, and I would get home about 5 to 8, at least scraping it to get it online. I've always wanted to actually make this show live. Unfortunately, due to my constraints around work and trying to get here, that's been a real major struggle. So that's why we've diversified into a few different areas. But now the show is on a Sunday, there's potential it might move from being a podcast-oriented show to a live show. And that's something I'm certainly looking forward to, and I know that Lee and Ali, that's something they've been pushing for quite a while. So yeah, we're going to get that off the ground, guys. Now I've got a Sunday evening, I'm generally pretty free. There's pros and cons to doing live and to doing pre-recorded, both ways. Pre-recorded is always been the best way for me, but I'm up for anything, let's give it a blast. Well, what have I been up to? So video project-wise, I've kind of been playing around with my brand new green screen, doing some tests and taking some advice, having a bit of fun with it. But to be honest, it takes a huge amount of my living room space up to just even get it set up. I had to turn my desk and have it pointing down, long ways down the room with the green screen drop behind, the two lighting rigs set up. And it's a huge ball ache. It is. I had to put it all away. It's just as much ball ache. So currently playing around with best practices, getting some good advice, getting some filmographers to give me some ideas on the kind of things that we can do with it, and things that you can't do with it, really. So that's all work in progress, and I'm having a bit of fun with that backstage here. But what we are going to be working on is a bit of a feature, really. It was a feature that was going to be written for the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality around fracking. Now, fracking, of course, is always up in the air. It's a big part of the agenda of what's on a lot of people's minds right now, and understandably so. So, the first major piece we're going to do is like a feature piece, straight to YouTube, and it's going to be centered around a fracking agenda, bringing in some other aspects that are not so much discussed, different angles, different perspectives, and more. If we were to do it on the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, it would just take up too much of the show concept itself. We like the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality to be kind of an open platform, with an open canvas for lots of different topics to talk about. So to just do an entire video special on fracking, awesome. That's what we're going to be doing next. Last Saturday, we went on a road trip from Nottingham all the way down to London. We stayed literally in St Pancras Church, next to a crypt of 512 bodies. They were literally sleeping so close to us, I could touch them. It'd be very easy to say I could smell them, but then again it was London, and everything smells like, well, it's London. Smog, sweat, consumerism, it's everywhere. Now, I tell you what, okay, let's just come back to this in just a moment, because before we start talking about Z-Day and breaking it all down, it makes sense for you to know what we're going to be talking about today, right? Let's do that first. So, okay, in true American celebrity top 10 fashion E-channel bollocks, Did you know there's a competition? It runs every year, in fact. It's called the Worst Company in America competition. I never guess who's up to be voted for. Thing is, do you know who won last year? Electronic Arts won it. EA, or Worst Company of America last year. I can think of companies who are much, much higher on my list than that. Anyway, the government in this country, the UK government, wants to ban unsavoury web content. He wants web content that is considered to be unsavoury to be censored. The UN publishes a second document and a comprehensive impact of climate change. I've been paying some interest to a case of a pacifist who's fighting his local council. In fact, they're taking him to court over non-payment of council tax. However, he's standing his ground, and so far he's doing very, very well for himself in regards to the fact that he's refusing to pay his council tax due to the fact that there's illegal military actions being done by the British government in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and he's doing very well. Yahoo, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, AOL, Dropbox, and so on, they all said they did not know what Prism is, that allows access, backdoor access, to all their files by the NSA, GCHQ super spooks. Yet today in court it was proven to be the complete opposite. Oops, now who's lying? Echellon, DC 6000 as it's called, Carnivore, Prism, now Mystic. Yeah, there's another program the government is using to monitor us. Yay. You could love this one. I'm going to break down what it is coming up in a few moments. The internet is such a part of our future, it really is. The interconnected structure that has huge dominance in our interconnected life. I'm not talking about Facebook here, but last Friday, the US made a big announcement that it was going to internationalize the internet. Sounds great, right? Only it's not. And we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. And of course, today, we can chat about the budget, of course. But I guarantee you, by the time this goes out on Sunday, you'll be sick to death of hearing about the budget. If you get every paper, every website, every campaign, every meme will all be about the budget. So I'm going to forgo that, avoid that completely. So that's what we've got coming up on this side of the break. So we're going to share our thoughts about what all those are about and what's going on with them and how they affect each and every single one of us. This is the rabbit hole that is reality. My name is Kristian Lander, and this is episode 22. Don't forget you can also join in the conversation. Hit us up on Twitter at DefineChristian, message me, come and get interactive. Don't forget to go to the Facebook page as well. There's always plenty of discussion heading on over there. Just search Rabbit Hole That Is Reality into Facebook, you'll find the page. Also on the website as well, rabbithole.thatisreality.co.uk. You can comment and also look at any of the source material that is available, pictures, video, and downloadable links, and also all the information that is available is yours, and you can have a look. Rabbit Hole That Is Reality is also under Creative Commons. You're welcome to share with it as you wish, wherever you wish. Just let us know about it, it'd be quite nice. So this road trip down to London, right? Down to the Z-Day, down to the Conway Hall in London. There's myself, there's Grant, there's my son Jace. And we pick up Paul from the Northampton chapter, and we all head down to London to stay over. We're at St Pancras Church. Literally, this church actually is really interesting for a number of different reasons. Bear in mind, I didn't see the front of it, didn't see any of the information inside it. Also, we just parked out the back, effectively. It's pretty much bombed out. I guess it's never had a paint job or a wash down since World War II. The place is dirty, covered in soot. Looks like it's been the result of a fire. The back of it, where we're parked up, there is 4 statues. And these statues are deities. The frames of the church itself are very Greek in their architecture. Now these figures may not have been Greek at all, in hindsight, because in fact one was holding a sheaf of wheat, one was holding a jug, one had her hand up holding a trident. So they're very similar, in fact, to the zodiac signs on a Christian church. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, we make our way throughout the day of Saturday, and we go into various different places, visit all the squares, see some street performers. That was pretty cool. Saw some talent on the market square. Saw a campaign for stop breeding lions for hunters to shoot them. Canned lions. There was a big campaign about that happening down in Trafalgar Square. So filling the day with activity, as you do when you visit London. 7 o'clock, or 6:30 really, we're at Conway Hall, and Conway Hall strikes me as being the kind of place I would like to go more often. Fortunately, I live 200 plus miles away. If you don't know about it, basically, it's one of those places that is designed for conversation, that is designed for debate and for talking, really. It's part of the ethical society. It's humanist research there. The biggest library of humanist research is actually just based there. And it's an ideal place to have the Z Day, really, to have the Zeitgeist Day. And it certainly comes at it from the same kind of perspective and the way we should respect natural law and science and so on working together. Not a sellout at all this time. There's quite a few spare seats around. But one thing I did actually notice throughout the talk itself, Ben McLeish did a great job of comparing, as it were, and then obviously being the first speaker. Ben McLeish, fantastic speaker, and really eloquent in the way that he comes across with his delivery. The guy knows what he's talking about. He himself actually said that a lot of people come up to him and say, "Thank you, you've taught me so much." And that's really what the basis of his first talk was about. Is about that, I mean, he didn't know that he was teaching anybody, he's just being himself. And that really is the paradigm shift, where we're actually supporting one another, and we're coming together through decentralized systems, and looking at emergent sciences and economics, and coming together, and how we are meeting that with science and with emerging technologies. I found the talk by, I think her name was Melissa, let's double check, and she gave a brilliant talk actually. Melissa Silvestri, she gave a talk on how that motivation, intrinsic motivation, on reward systems, and how people are actually have a stronger motivation to complete a task if there's not a reward set. If you don't know what the reward is, you're more motivated to get the task done. I find that topic to be very, very good. And in the first Q&A that happened, asking about her motivational system and the studies that went into it, however, they weren't the questions being asked. The questions being asked were heckling questions. Well, how are we saving the world? What does this have to do with saving the money? How can we progress to a transition? When she herself actually was just giving a talk about motivation, and just shouting out and coming out and saying, we need to find the solution, we need to move forward, how does this help us? And it's like, geez guys, do you want to cut the crusts off your bread as well? And the talks progressed. There was a brilliant talk, in fact, by James Phillips of TZM Education, and he gave a child's-like view and perspective of how to deliver a presentation to school children aged from around 6, 7 to around 12, should we say. That kind of age range. How do you approach science? How do you approach sustainability? Instead of people going to a school and going, "Hello, I'm from the Zeitgeist movement. I'd like to tell you all about our movement and how we..." And it's true. That approach does not work. If you want to talk to children, you want to talk to schools, or to get yourself in front of kids, in front of the brightest minds of the future, how to solve society's problems of the future, in fact, is to give them inspiration, give them something to learn about. And that is key. If you rang up a school right now and says, "Hey guys, does your school teach science?" Good. Does your school teach sustainability? And okay, excellent. Good. When can you book me in? We'll come over and talk about it. And boom, you're in. Exactly what I did. And I've already done that. And I've already got a booking. How about that? First one. Job done. On the day also, I got to meet Adamantium as well. He was doing some filming for the show too. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So I managed to finally meet him. Then a break happened, right? Break was really strange. I tried to talk to as many people as possible, trying to get people's ideas and perspectives. Having seen and observed from the crowd, a lot of people came in their own groups. A lot of people didn't talk to each other. There's clear distinctions between people who, academics, people who are a little bit science geeky, people who are, the hippie kind, those who were just single, came along on their own, just were maybe intrigued by what was going on. That's in fact how I met a lady called Sandra. She was there as a teacher, and she obviously had come on her own. She wanted to come the last couple of years. A few friends had bailed out, but she decided to come anyway because she'd already bought a ticket. Made good friends with her, got her email address and so on. We're keeping in contact. I tried to talk to all the other groups there, and generally everyone was pretty standoffish about talking to each other. I talk to anyone, I really do. But that was a real challenge being there that day, is that no one wanted to talk. We were outside on a break, and I went outside because currently got out for a cigarette or whatever. There was some guy doing some beatboxing, that was pretty cool, a bit of a round of applause. But that's when I noticed about a third of the crowd had gone. They left. They walked out. Maybe the heckler had put them off because that's what they were there to do as well, and they just split and vamoosed. When I came back in, the talks continued. There was a really good talk I felt from. What was his name? His name was Stephen. Well, in fact, it wasn't a talk as such. It was a video, pre-recorded video, really well made as well, and it talked about critical thinking. And that's something I think is a really important skill that people need to learn. And he gave some really good insights into books, how to approach the subject overall, how to improve yourself Really, really good. And then, of course, the highlight of the show, after some music, there was a guy with a guitar. It was pretty funky. But it seemed a bit out of place. And I noticed a lot of people during that time had actually got up and walked out as well. And then after that, it was Rob Reynolds of Enter Shikiri. He gave a fantastic talk, a really well-presented talk, really around music. Of course, defending music's social value, and how there's a systemic muting of the most powerful art form, and how music really interacts with us emotionally. Nothing else has the power of music, and how that's being stifled for various different reasons. And the creativity process completely and utterly devoid of any value. And a really powerful talk that was broken into 2 parts. That was really, really good, and I got to meet him as well. Talked to him after the show too. Really great guy, really down to earth, and we had a bit of a chat for about 5 minutes or so. Yeah, so that was the that was TZN. That was the Z day. That was the Z day down in London at the Conway Hall. It was on live stream, I believe, and also you can watch the videos up on YouTube. I believe they're up now. If they are available, I will post a link to them on the website rabbitholesreality.co.uk with a link to where you can watch those talks. So meat and bones of today's show really is going to start off with our talking about, we're going to have to go into this a bit as well. This is the UK wants to ban and censor what it considers to be unsavoury web content. This article here was printed in wires.co.uk and expands to quite a few different stories as well. We're going to track them as we go, as we talk about this. So the internet really is our last frontier when it comes to the freedom of speech. There's someone that would say that the internet in fact is a library. I don't think that's quite right the way to put it, although it is, of course, a huge storage facility, shall we say, of information, of data, of pictures, video, sound, everything you could possibly imagine is available on the internet. It can be found relatively easily, and some things relatively hard. The internet really is our pride and joy. What humanity has discovered, what humanity has created, is the way to talk to one another across the world, in a second, in an instant. And we share content, we talk about things all the time. A lot of those things we talk about, though, are being censored. A lot of the things we want to discuss are being stopped. That we feel very passionate about are being cut off from the source. So the UK Minister for Immigration and Security has called on the government to deal with unsavoury content. So we're not talking about illegal content here, we're just talking about an opinion that someone might not like. Shit, that's a fucking big net, don't you think? When it comes to things that people don't like, there's a lot of things that people don't like and will find unsavoury. Heck, some people don't like South Park because they don't get its sense of humour, even though in fact it's just Monty Python. They don't get it. That's unsavoury to some people. Religious content, perhaps a verse out of the Quran, or reading the Torah, for instance, or a poem by Doran Valiente. Is that considered now to be unsavoury just because they don't like it? Unsavoury is just such a word that is so open to interpretation of what it is they want. So it comes down to this, right? Let's just follow this story through and all the different avenues of where this is going to go. The guy called James Brockenshire, he's the chief, he's the boss over the UK Minister of Immigration and UK Security. He said he wants, basically, when it comes to YouTube, he says he wants to have super flagger status. Now, a flagger, for those who don't know, is someone who can basically tag content on YouTube, highlight the video of a breach of guidelines, and boom, gone. You know? Now, this is actually currently done by the Met Office. Sorry, not Met Office, that's the Meteorological Office. No, the Met Police Office, as in the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit called CITRU. And they're responsible for removing illegal terrorist propaganda. Now, it is said in an article in the Financial Times, that was just last week, it says that they found 29,000 videos and documents that have been removed from the web since February 2010. And this is due to around the radicalisation of Britons who are travelling to partake in Syria, it is said. Now, but this extends into other areas, doesn't it? If you can block content, you can block any content. And we're not just talking about terrorist material. Now, YouTube as such has a flagging system in place already for just such a purpose, and they review every complaint. YouTube has, for instance, like every minute of the day, they must have, 100, 200 hours of video being uploaded, like every minute. So there's no feasible way that, say, a team can literally just go through every single video and make sure it's A-OK. So they want the government to do that. What? They want the government literally to go on there, delete, 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 delete. Anything that's unsavoury. And we're not just talking about YouTube, that is just one example. Imagine every internet site in the world that a government has the ability to remove, block, or just destroy that content, wipe it out of existence, so no one can see it. Now, doesn't that a little bit suspicious, say, towards those who have different political leanings, those who have different freedom of expression, those who want to discuss something that is perhaps the government don't have a good view on? A good example would say be something like climate change. If you're a climate skeptic, it might be that they all ban your material. It might be that they can stop that from appearing on the internet completely. So there is only one radicalized, one radical view. And it's their view, and that is the only view, and they'll block all content that says anything different. Doesn't that worry the fuck out of you? Because it does me. Article of Human Rights. The European Convention of Human Rights, Article 10, is related to the freedom of expression. If a government can remove content, it breaches this human right. We have this as a human right. Now, there's lots of different things that people are talking about, the kind of content that should be banned, that should be blocked on the internet. Things like child pornography, things such as extreme behaviour, harming material, dismembering, that kind of thing. I kind of get it. The thing is, though, if you're not looking for it, you can't find it. You can't, for instance, go to Google or go to Yahoo and type in something like, child sex with adult or whatever. You're not going to find that kind of thing. What you will find, in terms of its results, you'll find like things like news articles. You'll find like journalist reports, court cases where that kind of thing has occurred, because that, of course, makes the content of the story. You're not going to find it by way of that. You're going to have to find it in some kind of private groups hidden somewhere in the deep web and hidden somewhere on forums or whatever. But you can't pretend it doesn't exist. But you can't censor it, because the censoring net covers much more than just X subjects. For instance, so in the UK right now we're having this filtering system being put in. Now, I use Virgin Media myself, and I've found out that last week Virgin Media is now the last of the big internet providers in the UK to now install default website blocking. These filters cover a wide variety of categories: hate speech, drug, pornography, self-harm, esoteric material, spiritualist material. Why is it, as a user of the internet, I cannot go looking for this material because it is now blocked? What the fuck is wrong? That is wrong. For instance, if I wanted to, say, get some services, say I wanted to learn more about drugs and the kind of things that effects that it has on people. If I wanted to go looking for that, what I get now is a fucking Virgin Media sign that says you can't go looking for this. This content is blocked. I guess they're finding it by tag words. I guess they're searching the website, and it's obviously they're plugging like meta tags, for instance, and they're blocking certain websites that feature certain words or certain content. And there's obviously going to be a list of websites that are also in that block system as well. But what we've found out, for instance, that those who use Sky, for instance, as their internet provider, have recently found out that websites such as the Samaritans, Wikipedia, are banned. You can't visit them, because they come under this internet censorship. It must be said also that Sky actually was the very first company in the UK to actually sign on with this filter system. So I think what it is, it's harming freedom of information online for adults and young people alike. These filters are blocking sexual health services, faith groups, charities. And it's not, the infrastructure is there now, allegedly, to protect the children. I mean, there's this whole fucking child worship thing going on right now. We must protect the children. How about people are responsible for what they look at? I've known, as a user of the internet, there's parental content on every console. Since back as far as the Dreamcast, the first internet games console, had child protection services in there. If you're a parent, don't be ignorant to the internet. It's not that hard to go upstairs and go to NetNanny, or Internet Filter, or NetWatch, for instance. There's loads of different software out there that are available. You can install on your child's PC or on your console that blocks the kind of content that child has access to. It is the parent's responsibility, and it is the responsibility of the person who provides the games console or the PC to make sure them blocks are in there so the child doesn't view that content. I mean, internet censorship, as such, is it's a slippery slope. Eventually, all content will be blocked, because someone finds everything offensive. And to suit those minorities, or those people who might find it offensive, everything will be blocked. Now, O2, for instance, and Telefonica, who are the parent company of O2, actually have a URL checker to allow people to see if websites are blocked and by the filters and what category it falls into. I think there's a really important thing here, because I think website operators will need and want to know how each of the internet service providers categorizes their website and to see whether they're blocked on them or not. And will website owners and web masters, for instance, will they be able to say, I'll call these ISPs up and go, why have you blocked my website? I don't think this should be blocked at all. For instance, the Samaritans. If that website is currently blocked under Sky, why is that? Because it talks about self-harm. It's blocked. So can the Samaritans call up Sky and go, why the fuck have you blocked this site? We provide an important service for a lot of different people. Oh, well. We'll have to put you through to this department we haven't actually quite created yet, sort of. Is that really how it's going to work? Imagine how many complaints and how many reports you're going to get on a daily basis of, people or webmasters calling into them and going, why is my site blocked? So it makes you wonder what kind of infrastructure they have in place to deal with those kinds of replies, because they're certainly going to get them. And who of course, is going to be paying for that kind of service? Will it be the government? I don't think so. It'll actually be the customers, of course. They'll have to put the costs up in order to create a new department within their ISP to deal with those kind of complaints. So once again, the customers, of course, is going to be not only blocked on content, but also be extra charged on that. And of course, I'm assuming on that point, I am assuming they are speculating. Those kind of services don't pay for themselves. Well, we know this. These are capitalist companies, and every penny counts. Whether it's the Electronic Frontier Foundation, New Statesman, Guardian, Independent, mainstream newspapers, the internet, any activism group, they're all talking about this because it is fundamentally changing the way and the access that we'll have to the internet itself. So, for instance, this article from New Statesman here, I'm just having a read of it, and I'll post a link up on the website. You'll find here that even Childline was blocked. It says here that Childline is blocked. Women's Refuge is blocked. What? Even BT are blocking gay and lesbian content. Hey, that's what? Collateral damage? Is that how it's being looked at? Just to make our children don't feel they're offended? Seriously, guys. This is just terrible. We're not in China here. Although, of course, China is going to be the number 2 language in this country, according to David Cameron on the Andrew Marr Show a few weeks ago. So maybe we are going towards that kind of system. But again, I digress, just because it bothers me that much. So what we are seeing is violent material, extremist material, anorexia, eating disorder websites, suicide websites, alcohol, smoking, web forums, esoteric material, web circumvention tools are all being blocked off. Homophobia. According to BT's own information here, they basically released a table of what the kind of content's being blocked. Under the sex education section, I shall read, sex education will block sites where the main purpose is to provide information on subjects, such as in respect to a partner's abortion, gay, lesbian lifestyle, contraceptive, sexually transmitted disease, and pregnancy. Yes, those content are going to be blocked by BT. Though, when this became known, when this document became linked to the public, and people know about it, BT reworded the description to actually remove the word gay and lesbian. But given that the filtering is now provided by a third-party supplier, it's likely the filter actually changed itself, just the description of their public content of the press release. And blocking lawful websites because of their ideas, just because the government finds them unsavoury, does that not breach Article 18 and 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which promises freedom of opinion and freedom of expression, and they're protected in court by international law? War cry against pornography, my arse. There's bigger things afoot here to block, isn't there? You know it. It just kind of oozes through the woodwork what this kind of thing puts into place, doesn't it? You know it, and I know it. And it also provides an interesting platform, doesn't it? An interesting methodology to block websites and block content and block freedom of expressions, freedom of citizen journalism, freedom of information to be out there that contravenes the official stories, which don't add up. We all know that the NSA and GCHQ do not want Edward Snowden revealing the documents out there that proves they've been spying on us for like 30 years. We know that that's not the case, and in their story, they've never done it, right? They've never spied upon us. Well, here's another story what tells you otherwise. GCHQ in the UK, the NSA over in the US, 2 very similar organisations, 3 and 4 letter organisations, really, that are at the heart of the super spook spying surveillance of everyone projects. And the kind of things that they're employing just decry human rights. They just decry mass surveillance of everything and everyone and every part of it, all interconnected together. Are we really? Is it really capable of receiving that information and doing something with it? Is there really that many people recording everything and everyone does? Really? Is that so extreme? Of course not. Because we know it's happening. No one seems to go it's wrong. And those who do tend to disappear rather quickly. So anyway, let's just talk about this story here that really bothers me quite a lot. So this story was it came out of the Washington Post, or the real actually came out of a revelation in Vancouver when Edward Snowden gave a presentation of what's called Mystic. Mystic, which is depicted in NSA literature. Their logo is a cartoon wizard. So the NSA remarked in a court case a few months ago, and again in front of the UN, that they said they only collect metadata on calls. So for instance, buzzwords, certain tags from certain calls, emails that contain certain words as they go through the servers, they're picked up and of course are then checked. But in actual fact, it's much more than that. It's been now shown that they're actually recording billions of audio calls every day. In fact, a period of 30 days can be glimpsed at in a matter of a second. And it says they had the ability to retrieve audio of interest that was not tasked at the time of the original call, which means the entire call has been saved somewhere in data form in their system, shall we say. A senior manager over at Mystic, he says that this project is much like a time machine, as that they can replay communications from any call without requiring an individual to be listed in advance for surveillance. They have the ability to record and replay any call. How long? How far back, I wonder? News of NSA's actual power to eavesdrop on communication, of course, comes on the same day as the NSA contractor turned whistleblower Edward Snowden made its conference. I saw. I actually got it. I downloaded it. It's available on the torrent network. You can have a look at that. Mystic is again depicted as certainly in the US. It says it has attained full capacity for the United States. It means literally is recording every phone call, every email, every data text sent through the system, through the communication system, is being watched 100%. They have full capacity. It talks about what's called retro, which is retrospective retrieval. I can't say it properly. Retrospective retrieval, together with powerful voice recognition technologies. NSA's analysts can sift through a fraction of 1% of the calls, and given that the huge number of communications collected, the absolute numbers are high. Each month, according to the NSA's, we record and store millions of voice clippings. The NSA's intelligence community defends itself, and it says that these technologies are required to defend against terrorism. Yay. So that's probably one of the buzzwords, so it's quite likely that the NSA are actually going to be listening to this radio show. It's pretty cool. Hello, guys. I mean, there's a public uproar about this. There really is. But let's look at, say, last year's intelligence budget, which listed 5 more countries for rollout of Mystic. That's like comprehensive access and content. A 6th country apparently has made it to this list in last October. What those countries are is presently unknown, but you can have a look at what this budget is in just a moment. I'll post a link up for you as well. Now, I mean, this is just fucking crazy, right? Seriously? I mean, there's an independent group appointed by Obama himself, entitled the Presidential Review Group on Intelligence and Communications. That came to be in last December. They advised that they had incidentally collected US communications, and they were purged upon detection. So according to Retro's internal reports, it says the NSA has a strong motive to deploy this system into as many foreign countries as possible. Now, Edward Snowden's documentation has also been published into Intercept, which is edited by Glenn Greenwald and the guys who obviously leaked a lot of his documents originally in the Intercept magazine that we spoke about in the last episode. Highly worth getting your hands on. Go to Intercept website, find out, see the stuff for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm just talking about the reports that I'm seeing. He told the audience there in Vancouver, because of course he's in Moscow, so he has to do it by video. He says there's going to be more revelations coming, and the most important ones are yet to come. Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the World Wide Web, he's calling for a Magna Carta to set down internet rights for each individual user. And in his press conference, my video, he actually says a Magna Carta for the internet is exactly what we need. And I agree, we do. I guess we've kind of got a rolling theme here of the internet and protection and rights and so on. So before we head into a break, I might as well throw this one in there for good measure. So it says here that the US General Counsel Radesh D. Now he says something really interesting. He was in court a couple of days ago. Now, do you remember how organizations like Yahoo, Google, Dropbox, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and so on, and they said they didn't know what Prism was, they didn't know that the NSA had backdoor access to their services, and all the data contained on their servers of all the different users and so on. In fact, there was a really interesting technology story I looked at yesterday, in fact, and it was talking about how the CEO of Google, technocratic guy that he is, and transhumanist that he is, he said something really interesting. And what drew my attention to it was the fact that he says that the US government, of course, they secretly infiltrated their organization and took their data and shared their data and so on through the NSA. And had they done it with their knowledge, they might have been able to achieve something better. And what they've actually done is they've created a very negative aspect in the view of the public. And all their data is now owned by them and being looked at by the spooks, as it were. Because what he was talking about was that he wanted... Imagine if you could share data of medical records anonymously to researchers. So that way you could... His example was that you could save 100,000 lives a year from cancer. And you could see trends worldwide. If you had anonymous accessible data from researchers with medical records. Then my brain going off on a bit of a tangent there. I'm pretty sure I read just 2 weeks ago that the NHS has actually uploaded a shitload of data to Google's services, for trials in regards to the centralisation of data. So that data is certainly available to them now. But anyway, I digress from what I was talking about in regards to all this accessibility that the NSA has to the backdoor of Yahoo, Google, and so on. It says here that Radesh D, who is the NSA's General Counsel, he was talking about this content since like 2008 surveillance law occurred actually with the knowledge of these companies. Wait, so what we're saying here? So these companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, AOL, Apple, Dropbox, and so on, all said they didn't know about it. Here, in fact, is the fact that it says here, this is what this guy said on Wednesday. He was talking about the US government's constitutional privacy watchdog, if under the collection of law known as Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act. What occurred there was foreknowledge and assistance from any company of which information is being obtained. Yes, was his answer. What he is saying there is that Google, Facebook, AOL, Apple, Yahoo, Dropbox, and so on did say yes. They were told about this. They were given information about this because they have to under their own legal process. It says the collection of this program was a compulsory legal service and that Prism was a government term that is the result of leaks that became the public term. So realistically, yes, these companies did know about the access to their own data by the NSA. And in fact, if you look at, say, Google, for instance, Google actually assisted in the acquisition of this data, as did Microsoft. Google's CEO is saying, that the government shouldn't have done this invasion of stuff and taking of data. You got the fact that Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook founder, he called Barack Obama up to voice his opinion on the damage the government is actually doing to the future, despite the fact that they must have known, or someone in their corporation must have known that NSA had access to this data and literally ticked it off and says, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. And despite the fact there's actually been no immediate response from any of these tech companies in regards to these comments, which was on Wednesday. Well, it poses quite a few legal situations now, doesn't it? Well, that time has actually gone pretty quick. I didn't realise it had gone, 40 minutes already. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to pause, we're going to have a rest, go get yourself a coffee, go get yourself a brew. We're going to pause for thought, we're going to take a break. And on the other side, I don't know, we'll find something to talk about because there's always something to talk about. So this is Kristian Lander, this is the rabbit hole that is reality, and I shall see you on the other side.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street. There's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells...
I have to say, I just went over to my window, and I would swear it was snowing. Where I was sat recording the show, right, I looked at my window to my left-hand side, my kitchen window, and it just looks like it looks white. All the roofs are kind of white. And actually, it's because it's raining, and the sun, in terms of perspective of the sky, is obviously above the clouds, and the clouds are creating a diffusing effect, so the light's being scattered. So from my perspective here, it looks like all the roofs are just kind of it's like a white sheen over them. And I generally thought it had snowed. That's pretty cool. All down to like light refraction and light reflection. Fucking awesome stuff. Even if it does mess with your head a little bit. So my name is Kristian, and this is the other side of the rabbit hole that is reality. And thank you for taking the time to join us here on episode 22 if you've just joined us. So, you know, I said just before the break, right, well, I'll think of something to talk about when it comes to this side. And, you know, I've just looked back at my notes and went, shit, I haven't covered that. I've got fucking fuckloads to cover. And I've got like 20 minutes to cover it in. So let's crack on with the show. If you were listening to the show last time, on episode 21, you'll know that we obtained a number of documents that are developed by the Ministry of Defence. They were produced by the DCDC company within the Ministry of Defence, within the MOD, in regards to the strategic trends for the next 30 years. That was 2007 to 2036, and then there's another document listed as 2040 afterwards. Okay, and it basically looks everything from inequality to climate change to growth to the economy, climate change, and how society is changing, how the world is changing, and how I guess that they are looking to plan and to organise to prepare for those possibilities and probabilities, which you have to do, right? We know they have to do this, and this document reveals that. And I say it is probably one of the best documents I've ever actually read in terms of its presentation and its breakdown of the way that trends follow. Really, really good document. I highly recommend you have a look at it. And part of that document, again, talks about, you know, something about climate change, something about our changing environment, the movement of people, and the change in the economy, and certainly the damage coming with the coming food crisis. So this week there's been a document been published, rather one of 3 publications to be published, in fact, by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it's due to be made public at the end of the month, so it's like a preliminary study, as it were. It's like a draft of the final version, it says here. So the world is now being placed under tremendous strain, it says. Mass migration, climate change, violent conflict, inequality, and the change in the environment is the core aspects of this document. And it reflects very well the document by the MOD in regards to the strategic trends that are being played out over the next 30 years or so. So it says here that this document has been prepared together based on thousands of peer-reviewed studies and have been put together by hundreds of respected scientists. And the report predicts that climate change will reduce the crops worldwide by 2% per decade for the rest of the century, at a time when we're having a rapid rising of the demand for food. So you're going to have malnutrition going up. This is by a 5th worldwide. We've certainly seen that in the UK. So, for instance, in Ireland, there was a study that came out yesterday, I saw, that now says that 1 in 5 people are having to use food banks in order to maintain their food and nutrition for the week. That's right, 1 in 5 people? That's crazy. But that's exactly the same percentage as it is worldwide that the UN has indeed put forward in their study. It says in the study that, in terms of my perception, it says the UK, the impact on the UK will be relatively small. I think that's actually going to be the complete opposite. I think the UK, the rising food prices are going to bother people. I do know that I saw a study that came out of work a few months ago that says there's wars in areas like Ghana where cocoa beans are produced in their vast quantities, and of course, due to those situations, the cost of cocoa and chocolate as such are going to shoot up by as much as between 200 and 500%. I believe it was in the Grocer, actually, that I read that. I'll have to double check, but when I find the exact quote of where I saw that detail, I will post the link on the website so you can have a look yourself. I'm sure it was the Grocer. So in regards to continuing the study here, it says that we're going to be finding coastal habitat unique to Scotland and Ireland is going to suffer greatly The UK peatlands are going to suffer. The UK is already having elevated air pollution. That's going to be made worse by the fact we're burning more fossil fuels, while warmer weather will increase the incidences of asthma and hay fever and so on. So, climate change is certainly having the effect. Food security, it talks down here about erratic low temperature increases worldwide. So you're going to see a negative impact on yields of crop. Now, a good example would be, say, the flooding that's just occurred down in Somerset, where we know that a lot of our crop, like maize and so on, wheat, actually is based in that area. A lot of our grass crops are based in those sunny, bright areas because they're actually at the lowest part in the country, therefore have a much higher temperature because they're a little bit closer to the equator than, say, the East Midlands or Scotland are. So temperature there is a little better for growing stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of those crops have actually been damaged now completely and utterly. But luckily, as we go into spring now, it might not be that bad. We might still be able to recover. Maybe. But the report forecasts that climate change is going to send the meridian yield up by 2% per decade for the rest of the century. It says there's going to be a 14% per decade in terms of the rise of demand per decade. So the yield is going to decrease, and the increase of food demand is going to increase by 14% per decade, which is completely out of whack with each other until 2050. Now, the global economy, it says here, the global mean temperature, which basically is the center temperature, is actually going to rise worldwide by 2.5 degrees in terms of their perceptions. It says that the human health is going to be mainly exacerbated by problems that currently exist. Climate change will lead to increases in ill health in lots of different regions, increasing the likelihood of injury, disease, and death due to intense heat waves and fires. We've certainly seen that across the likes of Australia, across of America, and I think it was even France a couple of years ago, had major fires. There's a likelihood increase of undernutrition, increased risks of food and waterborne diseases, and they're saying that without accelerated investment into planned adaptations, climate change by 2050 will increase the number of undernourished children by 25 million globally. That's right, they're saying a 22% increase in the amount of children that are undernourished. Again, that does mirror the reports that were found in the MOD document in regards to the next 30 years in regards to nourishment. But really, it wasn't their view was that it's also going to be a combination of other things as well. Due to the scarcity of food and the migration of people, and as well as the environmental effects that has, the amount of area to grow food will decrease because as human settlement areas expand, because obviously more people come to the cities and so on, the cities have to expand, and as we know, so greenbelt land, for instance, in the UK, is being taken up a great deal, and that land turns into what's called brown land. It becomes virtually worthless, really, because you put pollutants in there, you have to dig it up, and basically ruins the land in terms of growth and perspective for food, health food. So that changes into what's called brown land. So you're going to have denser populations, you're going to have less food out there, and of course, by their own numbers, much more children and much more people are going to be suffering from food poverty. And and if you remember, of course, there was that nice banker a few years ago. I say a few years ago, about a year ago now, actually. I believe it was around October last year, and again, I think it was earlier in the year as well. They were so proud about the coming food crisis because they're going to make a killing. Remember that? They said that the bankers said they were going to make a killing due to the world food crisis because people will demand more money for what they get. And they literally... So if you're an investor, of course, that's probably a good area to go and invest in. Although I didn't really say that because that's not very humankind, is it? No, it's not. But let's back to this report anyway. So we're talking here about freshwater resources. Now, I think freshwater resources is a very, very important area because you have a good example would be areas like Africa, where you have long rivers that actually go through multiple different countries. And those countries are frequently, at odds with each other, not just in terms of trade, but in terms of people, migration, war, separates those countries, dams get set up, and it affects the entire river. It really does, all the way down, all them people who rely on that river, everything from their fresh water to drink, and their industry, all gets damaged. It's all irreparably all the way down the river. You block it in one area, everyone else suffers. And countries will do that. They will, because everyone right now, it's a race for resources. We are at a time in human history, in terms of world history, where there's a massive run for the race for resources. So it says here that freshwater risks coming from climate change are significant due to the amount of greenhouse gases it will find that the climate change will reduce renewable surface water, and groundwater resources will be significantly dry in subtropical regions. We also know this from the fracking agenda as well. So this subject has come up in other areas, importantly so, because we know we are changing the chemical basis of the fresh water that is under the ground. So, for instance, a frack well uses between 4 and 15 million gallons of fresh water. They cannot use seawater. We live in a world where only 1% of our world water is fresh water. 1%. And we're using it for stuff like that. We, for instance, use fresh water in our toilet. Why don't we just use the water collected from the sink in the bath to be the water that flushes the toilet? Simple things like that I think of, you know. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So we use all this wastewater, we're wasting all this fresh water we really need to keep hold of, because we're using it for everything. So freshwater resources are absolutely key and vital. So I think if anyone wants to make a choice on how we're going to be moving forward in the future, again, I've thrown it into 1,000 different directions because my thoughts do that. We've got to make sure we keep in hold of water. Although, of course, in America it's actually illegal to collect rainwater now. Well, that's strictly not 100% true. It's that a number of states have laws that you can't collect rainwater, like Colorado, for instance. I always find it unbelievable, and it is unbelievable, to why we are not, mass-producing aquaponics and hydroponics. Where you don't need soil to grow crop. You really don't. You can grow food almost 5 times as fast without the soil, without even being out in the daylight. You can have, for instance, you can have a cylinder, where the plants are planted all around the outside the cylinder. You have the light in the centre. As it rotates gently around, as the cylinder goes round, for instance, it's receiving 100% of the light all the time. Remember, plants grow on light. That's what they feed on. So they actually grow all the time, and they grow 5 times larger, and they don't need any soil. I mean, hydroponics is amazing. For instance, there's been some calculations, something the size of a car park in terms of its space footage on the ground, perhaps about 10 stories tall. You have enough food and space there to grow enough crop and food that you would need to feed the entire south of England. The technology already exists. We just need to put it out on an industrial scale. There are some studies that I read a couple of years ago, and I'll post links to them, because I've still got them in my bookmarks, that if you grow plants in a sealed room using only red and blue lights, blue LED lights, the food that they're using plants, they grew 5 times taller than they should do, naturally, because plants don't actually need certain frequencies of light. They only need red and only need blue. And what happens when in these secure environments, just under those LED lights, they shoot up. They fucking huge. And if you're using something like hydroponics, you could do it in your window. You could do it in your kitchen window, for instance, on little bits of string. As long as they're receiving light, they actually don't need to be in the soil. Just a little water, a bit of nutrients. Jump down. These vegetables are going to grow huge. I mean, there was the technology being produced by Toshiba. Last episode of Rabbit Hole, it was reality, where something the size of a fridge can be put inside your kitchen. You can grow food naturally that way, again, without any soil. Not only to provide you clean, fresh air, clean, fresh vegetables without the need for soil and messing around. If on an industrial scale you can do that, and they can, just needs to be done. Although, of course, the food industry is all around the illusion of scarcity, which, again, is a topic most of us are well aware of. The value of all things, including food, is based on how unavailable it is, not based on its abundance. In fact, abundance does the opposite in terms of its value. If it's in abundance, the value decreases greatly, which of course is why they grow shitloads amount of corn in the US, therefore artificially deflating its value, so corn syrup ends in everything. Sliding back to the subject of the study then, I think the priority really should be about natural habitat being lost due to urbanization, pollution, and the depletion of our natural resources, not some fairy tale story about the CO2 theory. I just remember, if they can tax the air, they will. And remember in 2009, the Scottish National Party, the ones who are pushing for independence in Scotland, actually tried to do just that. In 2009, they actually generally tried to put a fresh air tax in place. Fuck me. These people are in charge now. They're saying there's only 2 certainties in life. death, and taxes. Everyone knows you're going to die. Everyone knows you're going to pay taxes. That is, unless you're stinking rich and you are the person who makes the laws that makes other people pay taxes and you don't have to pay any. Like an MP. Or like a CEO of a corporation, as it were. It's quite likely you actually pay your council tax, right? It's quite likely that you think everyone else does too. Do you know that not everyone does? And certainly if you are knowledged in what's called the British Rebellion, it's quite likely you will have come across a video by John Harris made in 2009 called It's an Illusion. You'll find it on YouTube in regards to statute law and common law and admiralty law and how illegal fictions and so on. But that's not what we're talking about here. You could go that way, and Freeman and the Land Movement, the FMOTL.org, will certainly point in the direction of ways that you can not have to pay your council tax legally. And good for them. And there's certain things about my council tax I actually don't mind paying for. You know, when you get your council tax request, because it's not a bill, it's a request, it's broken into 4 different sections: fire service, police service, ambulance, NHS, and your local services, like your library, like your like the refuge collection. So while it could be easy to go into things like, well, the police are private, NHS has been sold off to a number of private corporations, certainly been sliced and diced from the inside out. Fire services are now private. The library services are now pretty much owned by volunteers, and most people actually working there are now only doing about 15 to 16 hour shifts and not getting paid full-time rate. So there's no librarians anymore. Everyone's a customer service representative, also doing things like contact centre and court services, council services at the same time. So it's quite disputed, in fact, where your council tax money actually goes. But this is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about right now is a court case I've been following of a person called Handley Lester. Like I said, I've been following this around about a month or so now. It popped up on my radar, as it were, because he was in court on Wednesday the 19th of February at Portsmouth Magistrates Court. So let me just talk you through his case. Basically, he claims he's a pacifist and he's an anti-war campaigner. Now, he's been taken to court by his council because he refuses to pay his council tax. The payment in which he holds, he claims, would make him an accessory to illegal military actions by the British government in Afghanistan, Ireland and elsewhere. Now, at a hearing at Portsmouth Magistrates Court, this is when I first saw it, this is last month, 19th of February, here we are 20th of March, so yeah, it was last month. Now, Handley Lester maintains that it is his normal peacetime duty to indeed pay council tax, but this was reversed when the British government attacked and killed Afghan civilians and citizens in violation of domestic and international law in 2001. He quotes, "My case is that to pay the demanded money would involve me and any council agents in serious crimes. International law is applicable to the UK, as well as our own domestic legislation forbids me from becoming party to criminal acts being committed on an ongoing basis by the UK government, and this overrides any unlawful requirement placed upon me by the UK government." Now, he's supported also by the Make Wars History campaigner, Chris Cloverdale, whose website I'm actually reading this from. Now, it says here on his website, "As a grandfather, I find it personally difficult to sleep at night knowing that I am paying tax and I am taking part in Britain's unlawful wars and causing the deaths of other people's children and their grandchildren." The campaign by Makes Wars History submitted evidence in 2011 on this issue to Parliament to fully endorse Mr. Lester's arguments. And I'm going to go through them actually. And the campaign aids to make Britain's illegal involvement in war public, and they plan to achieve this by taking legal, financial and political action to hold the UK government accountable for the illegal war in Afghan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, as well as the unlawful death of many other people. Wow. That takes balls. That takes serious balls to even attempt to do that. But is that something that everyone can do? Imagine if everyone, countrywide, refused to pay their council tax. Who would pay who? What would pay for what? Would we actually get out of the war? Or would it in fact cause more wars on our streets? But then again, if the people paying the council tax pay the police to be on the streets to prevent us from protesting, they wouldn't be there because we wouldn't be paying them to do that job. Wow, that's a mindfuck, don't you think? So let's have a quick look at, does he have a legal right to do this? Well, actually, yes he does. Yes he does. And it's broken down into obviously his statement that he's obviously declared at his hearings. So I'll just have a quick reading of his statement and his summary about why he doesn't want to pay his council tax and why he believes the UK government is actually acting illegally and therefore shouldn't have to actually pay his council tax because he will be an accessory to murder under international law. So number one, he says, I have not paid my council tax on the grounds that are by demand of Havant Borough Council, as it is wrong in law by requiring me to commit crimes that are against domestic and international law, and I acknowledge that in times of peace, when Her Majesty's government is acting lawfully, taxpayers are bound by statutes to pay taxes, income tax, VAT and council tax, and the duty to refuse to obey unlawful orders. I maintain that every citizen is required by law to refuse to obey the orders of a government, including the orders to pay and collect tax when the government acts unlawfully in violation of the laws of war. He sets out quite logically and plausibly, as well as a fantastic legal document here that shows indeed that the UK government is actually acting illegally and has conducted terrorism activities, which would actually make him an accessory to that fact as well. And he's got a number of points in here why he's doing this, and it breaks down the illegal war, the criminal offences associated with paying council tax, terrorism laws, and so on. And it breaks into the Nuremberg war crimes trial as references, Nuremberg principles, the Appendices 2, the article of the Articles of War, the UN Charter of 1945, numerous variants on that, the Appendix of Act 1946. Yeah, he knows his stuff, and he actually has a really, really good case. And he cites in his legal summary that there's evidence in the case that identifies errors in law by Harran Borough Council, potential conflicts of law between the Local Government Finance Act of 1992 and the International Criminal Court Act of 2001, the Terrorism Act 2000, offences against a person of 1861, offences against international and domestic law by councillors in Havant Borough Council. It's got in summary, I am refusing to pay my council tax because it is unlawful, wrong in both domestic and international law, and will involve me as an accessory to war crimes and terrorism. I respectfully request that the justices reject Havant Borough Council's application for a liability order on the grounds that it is unlawful, wrong in law, and will involve serious. So I strongly recommend you come and check this guy out. He certainly knows what he's doing. He looks like he might even win this, and it's on a website called makewarshistory.co.uk. That's makewarshistory.co.uk. I firmly believe if you're against war, you're against the council tax, or you're a member of a lawful rebellion or whatever, or you have a view on this, or you just want to have a look at this in pure interest, head over to this website right now. I normally don't make recommendations like this, but come and have a look. It's in the links and the descriptions below, makewarshistory.co.uk. Okay, so what, we're an hour and 10 now. Okay, we've got two choices. We can either end it now, which is really, really fucking abrupt, and we shouldn't do that. Now, the reason I always run the shows off to an hour is because if it goes on TalkShoe, for instance, TalkShoe tends to have it only an hour and 2 hour upload sections. It's per minutes, of course. So when it goes on there, it tends to round up to an hour. And plus, it makes sense. Most people listen to it on the way to work. I mean, most radio shows that are an hour I listen to half on the way to work and the other half on the way home. If I'm busy doing a project here at work, I've often got a podcast or an audio drama or something going off in the background. It tends to be an hours. So I tend psychologically to make sure the show is an hour. So it's gone a little bit over. Hey, fuck it, right? Fuck it. Let's keep the ball rolling. Let's keep the ball rolling, because there's two stories, technology-wise, that I really wanted to talk about today. And I guess I should have mentioned them earlier, because I think they are scary as fuck. Now, you know the kind of tech we're talking about now, don't you? We're not talking about tech that makes you feel happy. We're talking about tech that scares the fuck out of me. You know, I like technology. I like the way that things are going. Okay, that's not completely true. But this kind of stuff scares the fucking living bejeebus out of me. But it's technology that is a natural evolution of technology, shall we say. So this is one we got here. This comes at us from The Verge, who are talking about a company called Opitex. Opitex unveiled its newest creation this past month, and it's pitched as a game changer in terms of the world of facial and iris recognition technology. Basically, it's think about the size of an iPhone. It contains biometric military-grade scanning for the move. The Aoptics shell is designed anything an police officer needs in order to process a suspect on the spot instantly. Fingerprint checker on the back. Camera's tricky. You have to hold about that foot away, it says, but the next generation will be much better. It says here it's designed to be for border crossings and airport security. The Ministry of Defense and the US Department of Defense are investing a shitload of money at this, and this is the marketing director says we can do it for business, we can conduct healthcare, disaster areas. It's really going to open up new markets in terms of civilian trafficking. Outside of the West, it's already here. Hundreds of millions of Indians have already had their irises printed, and with thousands of Iraqi civilians and anyone who comes through customs in Dubai. It's the gold standard of modern identification. Easily fingerprinted, more stable than facial recognition. All you've got to do is have the camera looking at you and open your eyes. And unlike retinal scanners, the scanner doesn't need to be up close. It's like a photograph. It's taken in infrared, which in theory can be taken across the room or across a street. If this sounds familiar, it's probably because there was actually one of these in Minority Report, where there was this omnipresent eye flasher, which I thought was really quite cool actually, because you only ever saw it in the background. But yeah, this is industry standard product now. So there's loads of technologies that are coming out like this. I can remember there was something I read about. It was called Morpho Trust. It was like a two-handed kind of iris scanning device. Now, I read about that about a year ago now, in May I think it was. Okay, no, that's pretty accurate for something about a year ago. That's because they were iris checking, like people who were in war zones. You know, if a bomb went off, they could quickly walk around, iris scan, print everyone, and then check back against like a database of suspects. So they kind of knew who they were. And that kind of went from being a military application to go to law enforcement, and then obviously going to be aimed as a consumer product, as a consumer for businesses and so on. And in fact, even my son's school, they have fingerprint IDs to get into school, and so you register. It's taken at every lesson with a fingerprint ID. So the fear is really it's biometrics being used to mass track individuals. It's only going to be a short step before you have to your iris scanned as you go in and out of work. So the database literally knows where you are, what you're doing, how much you're spending, and so on. Because you might have to do it to do transactions to prove that you're actually the card holder. It's not a major leap there, is it? So yeah, you think about all these things going together, all these interconnecting databases of communication and data. We want to know everything about you. And even the guy who came up with this stuff, where he says like it's essentially surveillance, it's CCTV, but irising. Wow. I mean, this literally is straight into who you are. And it's definitely you. So the other piece of technology that scares the bejeebus out of me this week that I've seen, I guess in many ways this is probably going to replace the 14 story this week, isn't it, really? It's technology that scares you. Okay, so this is certainly where the future is going to be going, and you have to wonder about the ethical implications of this simply just on sheer basic level. Okay, so this was published in what's a magazine called Echellon magazine, which is a peer-reviewed science journal, and it was published by a philosopher and a scientist, and her name is Rebecca Roche, and she claims that a prison sentence for serious criminals should be made worse by extending their lives. Okay, she says here that drugs are being developed to distort prisoners' minds to make them think that time was passing more slowly. We currently have a number of psychoactive drugs that distort people's sense of time. Can you imagine developing a pill or a liquid that makes someone believe they are serving a 1,000-year sentence? Did you understand that? Do you understand what I just said? Hopefully you did. They are developing a drug that will make someone believe they're having a 1,000-year sentence. Now, Dr. Roche also has a blog. So I went over to the blog, and I'll post the link to that below. You actually might like it. There's a lot of stuff on there in regards to ethics and so on. So, although there's this drug that they're developing, which will have this, what they're also looking at is what's called a second scenario. It says we would like to upload people's minds, human minds, to computers to speed the rate at which their mind works. And this is on her blog. If we sped up the factor by 1 million, a millennium of thinking would be accomplished in about 8 to 9 hours. Uploading the mind of a convicted criminal and running it at 1,000,000 times faster than normal would enable the uploaded criminal to serve a 1,000-year sentence in about 9 hours. This is much cheaper for the taxpayer than extending their lifespan to enable them to serve a 1,000 years life sentence in real time. So in the UK, she says that there's a 30-year maximum prison sentence. It's the most severe punishment available in the UK system. She says, to me, these questions about technology are interesting because they force us to think about truisms we currently hold about punishment. When we ask ourselves whether it is inhumane to inflict a certain technology upon someone, we have to make sure that it's not the unfamiliarity that spooks us. Is it really okay to lock someone up for the best part of their life that they'll ever have, or is it more humane to tinker with the brain and set them free? So when we have to ask the question, the goal isn't simply to imagine a bunch of futuristic punishments. The goal is to look to today's punishments through the lens of the future. Now, what do you think about that? I mean, seriously, send me a message about this. I really want your thoughts on this. At Define Kristian is my Twitter handle. Head over to Facebook, hit up Rabbit Hole That Is Reality on there. Your thoughts about it on there, because this is incredible to know and to believe that we are intending to lock people up for 1,000 years in their own head, and to live 1,000 years. I mean, that's going to be crazy. Imagine being locked up or having time pass perceivably for 1,000 years. And this is where we shall draw our show tonight to a close. I have been Kristian Lander. I have been your host here tonight for the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, episode 22. We thank you for joining us here tonight. So if you've got any views, any thoughts, and anything we've spoke about tonight, from living 1,000 years in your head as a punishment, to the UN revealing this document on climate change that's stressing our world, hydroponics, aquaponics, make sure you check them out. We have the UK government censoring unsavoury content, don't forget that one, unsavoury content. What constitutes unsavoury? You've got the pacifists fighting for everyone's rights in regards to the UK government who are acting illegally and taking us all to war, and how he's currently at court. You have the NSA and GCHQ have been revealed having backdoor access to the likes of Yahoo, Google, Dropbox, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, AOL and so on, and they knew about it. You have, the next evolution of the likes of Echellon, Carnivore, and Prism. You now have Mystic out there recording everyone's phone calls in real time. It has the ability to recall stuff, going years back, every telephone call being recorded, and not forgetting the story we didn't in fact go back to, and that was the story of America's Worst Company competition. There's a competition for this shit. Yeah, there's a competition for America's Worst Company. On that list, Electronic Arts, who won it the last 2 years in a row, Microsoft, SeaWorld, Time Warner, Comcast, Monsanto, Yahoo. What? I can understand some of these companies being on there. I mean, Electronic Arts are a games company. I mean, I know they don't make the greatest of games all the fucking time, and they want to rich your money out with Madden, FIFA and all that shit. They make yearly titles, but in the past few years they've actually done a really good job. I mean, okay, they fucked up Mass Effect 3, which was the reason why everyone voted for it last year. But seriously, fucking Monsanto is on the list. If you want to get any kind of public recognition, you make sure you head over to this company's website, the worst company in America, and you vote Monsanto in that list. This company has presidential protection from ever being taken to court. Everything by them, is private. Everything by them is patent protected. We don't even know what it is and what they're doing. What we do know is they're a chemical weapons company. We know they are engaged heavily in genetically modified food. They are now the world's biggest food supplier. Does that make you think that they're a very nice company? And you may also want to look at the Time Warner Comcast thing, because they're the two biggest media companies in America, and they're merging together. Yeah. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Have a good night, everyone, and I'll see you next time.